Labour talked a big game before the election, promising all sorts of wonderful things. But the moment they got into power, boom, promises shattered and hypocrisy in full swing. Who's shocked? Well, nobody really. Enter Conservative MP Jesse Norman, who absolutely roasted Labour for ditching the very people they claim to support. And, honestly, he didn't hold back. But before we get into this total dressing down of Labour, I would ask if you can like and share this video to help spread the message. Alright, let's get into it.
Jesse Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the whole House will want to join me in recognising and thanking the salvage and nature recovery specialists who are even now scrambling to clear up after the disastrous collision we've seen in the North Sea. Mr. Speaker, they say a Conservative is a socialist who's been mugged by reality. But if that's so, then we're witnessing the extraordinary sight of a Prime Minister who's being visibly mugged by reality in slow motion before our very eyes. The government's brand of socialism started well. From its point of view, if disastrously for the country, we had the union payoffs, the rapid settlement of pay disputes in the public sector for zero apparent efficiency benefits, and a heavily tax and spend budget. The Chancellor was even so bold, as we will recall, to announce to the CBI that she would not be raising taxes or increasing debt over the course of the government. As she said, I'm really clear, I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes. But of course, the budget started to unravel almost as soon as it was published. We had the bizarre sight of a government which was ever more committed to talking about growth while it proceeded to club growth to death across a variety of sectors. Well, how was that? Through the national insurance rise, of course, the £5 billion burden of the new Employment Rights Bill, but also, of course, through its loss of credibility in the markets, which have pushed up gilt yields by 25% since September. Great British Energy was announced and did nothing. The government made an unsuccessful attempt to claim credit for the achievements of the newly rebranded National Wealth Fund, which had been set up only weeks before. The system of infrastructure monitoring and planning had been dismantled, and there has been no news for 3 months of the decision on small modular nuclear reactors, which was due in December 1st or thereabouts. I ask the leader if she can update the House as to when we can expect that decision. Then President Trump got elected despite, or perhaps because of, the special SWAT team of Labour activists sent over to campaign for his rival, and then the mugging by reality really began. The Energy Secretary was forced to pare back his ruinously expensive zero-carbon energy plans. The Prime Minister had to announce his plan for change. The government was forced to accelerate its defence spending plans in order to address the situation in Ukraine. And so it continues. This week, we have heard of its so-called Operation Chainsaw, or is that butter knife, to reshape the civil service. Next week, we will have hasty and almost certainly ill-thought-through cuts to welfare. Mr. Speaker, Labour were red under the member for Islington North. They became a gentle cerise for voters at the time of the general election. Now that reality is setting in, they're a pleasing shade of purple with more and more patches of blue. The Prime Minister and the government are becoming more conservative by the day. But, in sharp contrast, it is the government's policy towards rural areas that is most striking. We've seen the family farm tax and the disproportionate effect on hospices and social care services in rural areas arising from the rise in national insurance. Now we see, in the same week, Mr. Speaker, new compulsory purchase powers to seize farmland and the abrupt and unexpected end of the Sustainable Farming Incentive Scheme. The government is simultaneously reducing farm incomes, threatening farm holdings, and forcing the sale of family farms through its inheritance tax changes. Even, I am sad to say, the £35 million allocated to clean up the River Wye, one of the natural glories of this country under the last government, has been cut to just £1 million. Mr. Speaker, the Labour message is clear. Don't be a farmer. Don't feed the country. Don't give us food security. Don't work every hour God sends, whatever the weather. We don't care. Now, the leader has been very clear that it's her policy not to answer opposition questions, or even to answer questions about her policy of not answering questions. And she ignored my questions yet again last week. But perhaps she can have a go at these questions now. Why has the government taken such a punitive approach to the countryside? And is it doing so deliberately, or is it just by accident? And finally, will she come to visit some farmers with me in Herefordshire so she can see the actual effect of these policies for herself? We'll throw in some magnificent Shepherd's or Rollston ice cream as well, if that will make any difference.
Like the video. if you think this government is the worst thing to happen to this country in living memory. And I'll see you in the next one.